Good afternoon. I'm going to do a quick, or as quick as I can, recap of Mica Miller's death investigation that we have found so far to date. Every one of the subjects I bring up, I will also try to bring up the people who covered these subjects, and if you're more interested in hearing more about it, I suggest you go on to their channel or my channel, whomever it is who did these subjects or covered these subjects, and watch the whole video. Now, of course, naturally, we're going to start with the announcement of Mica's death by JP at the church. And Jack Fox from Never a Truer Word on YouTube covered this very subject. He is a communications expert, and I would suggest, if you want to hear more, to listen to that video or watch that video. Now, one of the first things he mentions is that JP says in his announcement, self-induced. Self-inflicted is the normal term for describing someone who's self-unaliving. JP says self-induced. Now, induced means to persuade somebody or something, or to cause something to happen, or to initiate. He also says, JP, that he got the call and that this all happened up in North Carolina. Jack finds that to be JP's way of distancing himself from the actual event. JP also says, well, you all know she was mentally ill. This is why the death happened. Jack feels that's his way of controlling the narrative, and don't question the manner of death. JP also says he's running on adrenaline. Adrenaline indicates an adrenaline rush, which means excitement, thrilling, or intense emotions. There is no sign of grief at all throughout the entire announcement, and he doesn't do an altar call, which is very odd for any pastor, especially when you're announcing a death. The next subject is the protests. So the fedora hat guy attacks the protesters' signs. We've got JP and two others trying to talk the protesters, one of them being Allie, into coming into the church to talk as an obvious entrapment. We've got Water Boy spraying the sprinkler water into the faces of the protest, which ended up being an assault, and he was arrested for. We've got Susie Skinner giving the protesters the finger as she's coming out of church. I guess that's her way of worshiping Christ. We've got Dominion TV sending out Destiny Dutton to falsely act as a reporter for a fake media company. And then we have Trisha and Nick act as if they are praying towards the protesters, but probably praying for them to go away. God wasn't listening anyway. Then we've got JP Miller paints himself in a corner. Now, this was a video that I did. So since JP, on every interview, written or in person, kept pushing the narrative of mental illness and also self-unaliving, I had reminded him in this video of Michelle Carter, who was arrested for encouraging her boyfriend to unalive himself after he was threatening to do so. She was sentenced to 15 months in jail and 5 years of probation. Now, with JP, it'll probably be a much longer sentence because with this narrative of keep pushing that she was mentally ill and she drove her to do this to herself, there is proof, even though we believe that it was murder, that he would still be found guilty because during their marriage and separation, he physically, emotionally, sexually, and financially and spiritually abused her. So either way, he's found guilty of her death. Moving on. Sermons by JP exposed as confessions or projection. Okay, I got a call. Sorry, forgive me. So he says on the altar, what goes on in his life is said on the altar. So he admits this. And as he goes on, he asks the congregation, what if I murdered someone? Would you still follow him? He asks them. He also says at one point that he is depressed, angry, full of demons, seeing a psychiatrist, a deliverance counselor, inner healings 3 times a week on 900 milligrams of lithium, suicidal and filled with hatred. He said that there are also some people he'd like to see torn up by bears. He said a pastor friend, which we know was him, his wife left him for a younger man who was working for them, and that the attorney hired a PI and found the two together. We know that that's JP and his attorney. He also admits to controlling people and using meds on the altar. And he also talks about a supporting character and a lead character on the altar, and sometimes the supporting character dies so that the lead character always wins. Then there was a point where we were able to prove that Saldmach is, formed from a Freemason belief system. Now, JP's grandfather was a Freemason. It's on his tombstone. The sensual lifestyles, the twisting of the word of God, focus on money and materialism, and the way that there's destruction towards enemies all follow the Freemason protocol or beliefs according to what some of these lodges have in their websites. And I've mentioned them in the videos. JP also admits to studying every world religion that's out there and how they get to their nirvana. Mica was in the process of exposing wicked things that were going on in JP's life and possibly attached to the church and ministries, and that's why she lost her life. She knew too much. Then we go on to JP's personality analysis. So on the altar, he admits that he's got the same personality as Hillary Clinton, Hitler, and Satan. Now, he tried to lump Trump into that, but when I did further research, no, they do not have the same personality. But he does have the same personality as Hillary, Hitler, and Satan. And those 3 people are obviously demonic, narcissistic, and homicidal. Exposure to the Dare to Care missions being taken over was taken from Mica by JP, and then he goes and makes a video asking for donations, said that the Duttons from Dominion TV had given money towards this, but Mica's mom had to step forward and say, please hold off on giving any donations, that the family was working on their own missions with, I guess, Pastor Jumba, because Pastor Jumba had said he hadn't received any money. And so we have no idea where any of these donations went to. Jack Fox also did a breakdown of that on Never a Truer Word on YouTube, of that JP asking for donations. The next thing we go to is the neighbor's 911 call on May 1st, 4 days after Mica has passed away. The neighbor's initial reason for calling was because of many young Asian girls showing up at the house again. So he's saying that this has happened before. Saw JP beating up one of these girls at one time. Says the mail lady confirms that they're very young because one of them answered the door when she was trying to deliver a package, and the girl accepted the package. Also saw, on this phone call, the neighbor says also saw JP beating up on Mica. Then he also indicates that JP on Saturday, April 27th, the day that Mica passed away, was at home that morning because JP almost hit him and other people with his truck, the blue truck, which totally destroyed JP's alibi. Robbie Harvey actually confirmed that today, interviewing this man and confirming. And we'll talk about that at the end. This man also mentions in the call human trafficking and says that they all know that he's involved, meaning JP, with this and other things, and says that they, meaning the community, all believe that Mica did not do this to herself. Now we go on to the death certificate. There's no radiology yet. They found 2 fractures in the back of the head. Gunshot wound, default information used in the description, no exam, no autopsy. But yet it seems like they just use default pathology information to put in there just to fill something in. Liver mortis and positioning was in question. Casings being 100 feet away were in question. Most of the description of Mica's history was verbatim everything JP has been saying in his narrative. Times of reported call and times of reported finding of her are one and the same time on the incident report. So that also shows that the whole investigation was questionable, if there was an investigation at all. Then JP does an interview with NewsNation. Now, I had brought up in a video on the 10 signs of deception: speaking fast, being vague, repetitive speech, no real proof of anything being said, excessive speech, rise and fall in tone, higher pitch usually is used when there's deception, excessive eye contact, trying to convince somebody of something, touching face and eyes and stuff like that, fidgeting, finger pointing literally and figuratively, telling simple stories. With him it's always just medicine, or mental illness. He never really has anything to confirm these things. It's just he stays on one note constantly. Now, the most telling of this interview was that he had said, even though she went seeking for protection order, was separated, said go away, just made all signs as she wanted nothing to do with him, he admitted he emailed her all week, even on the day of her death. When the interviewer asked, what do you think happened to your wife on that day? JP responds with, are you asking me if I think my wife was murdered? And then with a high pitch, no! Total sign of deception. He also makes a Freudian slip of if somebody really cared about her, referring to the family, and they thought that she was being abused, and then he goes, sick, that she would have been checked out. So, Freudian slip right there. Then we go on to mention the commonalities of soiled mock and Scientology, another cult, just like Freemasonry. And in Scientology, they use organized stalking. They destroy their enemies with counterattacks. Anybody that opposes them in any way, their counterattack is digging dirt. Remember, JP was paying $350 to whomever would go and dig up dirt on the content creators. Property damage, she destroyed her tires. Tracking devices, do I really have to go into that? Destroying reputations with false narratives, constantly pushing the false narrative. And sabotage, which is what he did to her missions. Then there was a fake receipt floating around, if you remember. And it was a receipt that didn't really have any information on it except that it was from Olive Garden, $650. Unfortunately for the person who created it, they put the wrong date on it and made it April 27th. So that totally blew the whole thing out of the water. No photo, no signature, no proof that it actually belonged to JP. Then there was probate court. JP wanted to keep fighting the family, but Charles Randall made sure that he settled and that all records would be sealed and that there would be a gag order put into place so nobody could speak about the settlement. Because they've got something to hide. Can't hide it from the feds, but they wanted to hide it from us. Regina Ward does an interview with Fitz News right before that court date, and she states Mica's cell phone and Apple Watch is still in the hands of the authorities, and they're not going to give it back until they're done investigating. Well, it's not Robeson County. They finished their investigation May 7th. This interview was, if I'm not mistaken, July 29th. So obviously she was not talking about Robeson County. Fisherman's interviews are re-examined, and I send them to Jack Fox, and he comes back with found some inconsistencies. One of them was that the fisherman kept saying the words other couple. The other couple saw or heard the gunshot or whatever in a boat. And he finds this to be questionable because where's the first couple? For there to be another couple, there'd have to be a first couple to mention another couple. So he says, was the fisherman possibly not alone? The fisherman's cadences also change every time he talks about getting Mica's belongings. He explains his actions rather than recounts the events. He also says twice, the fisherman, he told them his story instead of saying what he heard or what actually happened. So again, recounting events. Then there was the Fair Bluff versus Bear Bluff issue. That issue came up, and which was a good thing, because what this did, this opened the door to looking into different directions and finding new connections. It brought us to where we are today. Then inconsistencies with Mica's phone. The airplane mode, okay? Which we all know the law enforcement usually puts a phone into airplane mode upon investigation. So what was brought up was a VPN probably used to change the location, or maybe a VoIP, which is a voice, I forgot what O stands for, but it's a voice internet phone. The search didn't make any sense on her phone, because why would she search for Dick's Pawn Shop when she knows exactly where it is? A lot of people that know her said that. Phone pings at 1281 Princess Anne, which is where the maintenance man happens to live, of Lumber River State Park. And then the next thing, which was, have we been looking in the wrong direction? So was Mica misdiagnosed? Hypothyroidism, the hoarseness of the voice, weight changes, mood changes, all those things came up into question maybe after her surgery. And these are diagnoses that are always mistaken for bipolar. Then samples of how simple Mica's voice can be duplicated on both voice modification and AI. That also came up. Thanks to Voices of Justice by Danielle, she was able to prove that location can be spoofed by using, as I said, VPN, or even swatting, which is where fake phone calls from blocked locations are made to 911 against somebody to do a fake SWAT call. There's also SIM cloning and software that can actually block a location. Danielle was also able to prove that Reginald Miller has 2 VoIP phone numbers. We've also been able to expose that JP had been grooming Mica from the very beginning, and actually that same grooming has stayed throughout their relationship, how it started and how it kept going throughout their relationship. Then Nabil Shazad from Infinity Jewelers, we had found that he stated on Facebook that he had met with Mica the day before she passed away for 4 hours. This is what he claims. He has financial interest in both Soiled Mock and Cathedral Bible College. Then the gas station videos were re-examined as well and zoomed in. People were able to prove that a person potentially was in the car with Mica. It's a lot of people that actually prove that. I think it was Sorted Out Sleuthing who really did zoom in and find that. So we have to give her props. She's on TikTok. Then Soiled Mock changed the YouTube name, changed it to JP and Mica. Then on the 4th month of the anniversary of the day of Mica's death, Soiled Mock changed their name on Google to Left It in the Water. Shortly after that, they changed it to Praise Jesus, and now it's back to Soiled Mock. The next thing was that I had heard back from the AI expert who listened to the 911 call from April 27th, where he said that it sounded like conversational AI, and there is a video on that on my channel regarding that. Then we were able to figure out who the Charles was that the fisherman was talking about, which ended up being Charles McKinnon, and admitted by his daughter on Facebook that he is the Charles. Charles happens to be good friends with, and they are friends on Facebook with each other, Tommy Walters, who is the maintenance guy at Lumber River State Park. Then we had brought up, and I have a video on that as well, organized stalking. and that it was done to Mica throughout the marriage, throughout the separation, and most likely on the day of her death. Then Danielle once again brought up from Cornell Law School about tampering with a witness, victim, or informant for the feds, and how under 18 U.S.C. 1512 AIC, 18 U.S.C. 3142 F1AB, and 18 U.S.C. 3142 F2A and B. These are laws that are against people who intimidate, influence, or even kill informants or victims or witnesses for the feds. She had brought up that most of these cases that she was referring to compare with Mica were staged unalivings, self-unalivings, but truthfully they were murder. And if I'm not mistaken, the names that she brought up was Sandra Birchmore and Karen Reed. And this is probably why the feds got involved with Mica. There's also been recent exposure of Reginald Miller and his two little friends there, and this was thanks to Agatha May, Sadaf, and Solomon Yousas, however you say their names. Sadaf's on Facebook under the name Amber Asher, Ashar. All have been accused of claiming a fake molestation that's against Sadaf, which was dismissed, found to be false. And we move on to Robbie Harvey, which was today, and he did an actual interview of the neighbor that was on the May 1st 911 call. And this man was able even now to recollect why he made the phone call and how, yes, April 27th, that Saturday morning, he and his wife almost got hit by JP taking off. So it does place JP in Myrtle Beach on April 27th that morning, and not in Charleston as he claims, because this man had just got a new truck and was very angry that he almost hit their new truck. So this is why he was able to recollect it very clearly even today, or even in recent days. And so JP's alibi is completely and utterly destroyed. So there we are up to today. Now there's a few other things added to that I may have kept out. One of them is CJ and Trey had just done a visit to the Lumber River State Park River and examined it. And I know that they're doing shows today and tonight about it. And there are also other people like You Can't Suicide Us All and Veronica Adams who have done incredible work exposing Robeson County and the corruption of Robeson County and different aspects of the crew, the people, the flying monkeys of J.P. Miller. And so this is where we are to date. More will be coming out. And this helps with a recap for anybody who just started listening to the case or paying attention to the case. And this gives you an idea of what you can go back, whatever subject you'd like to look into, and where to look. So thank you for listening, and I will see you soon. God bless.